Hello, friends. Welcome back. And we're now into the top 5 FICS masters of all time. So, first thing to say is all 5 of these players are absolutely elite. They were all #1 players for extended amounts of time, and they all definitely deserve to be there. Just finding the right order was quite a difficult task. It required a lot of analysis, but we've got there and we're going to get straight into it. So at number 5, we have a gentleman by the name of Bohobe. He is the number 5 player. Bohobe, you can see Bohobe means bread. I believe that's a South African language. So he may be from that region. 38,000 games, 2486 best. Really an elegant player. And we're going to see a couple of his games. The first one I'm going to gloss over pretty quick. It's just a bit of an introduction to sort of warm up. And it's actually a game that I played against Bohobe that I'd saved to my journal. I think it was the first time I had defeated a #1 player. So I'd saved this game, luckily from 2004. So we're going to have a quick look at this. All right, make that screen a bit bigger for us. All right. So the usual, and then we see knight h6 again. So Bohobe plays this variation. Now, you can see I don't really know what I'm doing. Queen f3 is not the right move. I'd probably never seen this opening before. I'm kind of working it out. So this happens. And of course, the beginner kind of idea is, well, let's get rid of my bishop. But of course, that's going to create a few more problems for me. As now we have this line of my rook coming up here. And Bohobe gets his knight down to g4. So what to do? Let's just make things more complicated. Bang in knight b5. So takes, make it even more complex when I think I'm in trouble. And queen takes c2 was probably the slightly better move there, but still okay. And now it's, you can see my time's getting a bit low. I've got 39 seconds. Bohobe's got the idea, I think, positionally, to get rid of my king. Having a queen is usually better than not having a queen. It gives you a bit more flexibility. But of course, you can run into some trouble if there's no more takes. So here, actually, black might be getting into some strife because it's very difficult to calculate this at such low time. He's probably thinking, I can take and he can take back, but it's a bit of an unclear race. And in the end, I managed to win. So my first win against the #1, but a pretty unremarkable game, really. So let's see something much better. And this is one in Bohobe's journal. And this is number 4. All right, so you can see he's playing a 2-12 game. Yeah, so maybe knight c6, not exactly the strongest opening. Only playing a 1900 rated, but let's see what happens. Rook b8, still the right positional idea, if not tactical. Get some exchanges going on. Okay, he opts for knight takes, thinks that's pretty safe. Okay, black gets rid of his bishop. White gets his rook safe. And this is quite a good move by black. Queen b6 tries to create some problems to draw this rook out. So knight a3 to stop it. And this is quite quite interesting. A little bit scary for white. You might think, hang on, knight takes, but white's calculated it pretty well that this knight's not going to be able to take the lot. Everything's just safe enough positionally. So this knight e3 move looked scary, but it will work out for now. So black tries to trade here. Of course, can't move the king out. Tries to get that knight, get rid of the bishop. And now black's not left with much. And king f7. All right. One. All right, this is the interesting position here. So we've got knight g4, and it's looking a little scary because we can't move the king away, or looks like we're taking the lot. Pause this if you would like, and have a look and try to find white's best move here, because I think this is a very elegant move. Not so easy to see. So have a look for a moment. And if you've managed to find the best move, congratulations. King e1. This is, I think that's a very elegant move. Very well calculated. Lots of little intermediates here that white's foreseen. So, you know, we've got the knight can come down here and capture just enough to get out of it. So knight takes pawn, takes, and rook takes here. So what we're left with, white's actually calculated this too. So we'll see how the game concludes. All right, so actually even here, it doesn't matter what black gets. Everything else is lost. So knight was actually a decent try. But everything is going to be captured this way. Now, this is interesting. What do we promote to? Rook is the safest and the easiest way to win. Usually, interesting to note that king versus knight usually wins, but if you promote to king, it loses here. Promotes to king, you have knight d5, and the knight's going to go next move, so it can't promote to king. But of course, just finishes it off with rook. And very nice combination, Burgle. Beautiful. All right, that's the number 5 spot. So moving on to the next. The next player, and again, some might consider him one of the greatest to ever play. Certainly at one stage around this sort of 2006 mark, he was clearly number 1. And this person is Multani. So Multani's played 42,000 games, a really high best rating, 2,500. So there was a time, you know, he was still kind of learning and playing against good players. And then what I hear is there was a real period of dominance where no one was beating him. He was just elite, really crushing it. And what people said about Multani at the time, they kind of said this guy is a little bit arrogant. But I mean, if you're that good, maybe being that arrogant is deserving. I think he used to wind people up a bit and try to bit of trash talk. And it's interesting that it's very hard to find any of his games. He only had one game in his journal, because you can kind of see he played other things too, Crazy House, Bug House, etc. And the one game he's got for us to look at is actually kind of a silly game. It doesn't even really show him playing really well. It just kind of shows a little swindle at the end from an opponent mistake. So we'll very quickly look at this game. It's not the greatest game, honestly. But this is all we have, the only game we have of Multani. And that's his number 6. So against Wonder Tom, another elite suicide player. So 0-1. Multani played a lot of 0-1. This is opening that I sometimes play as black, so it's fairly common. You get this kind of position here where the knight goes and the c-file opens up. Got to be a little bit careful if the c-file opens up and you need this knight to protect, otherwise your rook and queen can come out. But this knight's stable for now. Queen here, interesting play. And the c-file opens. Yeah, okay. Now this move, I'm not sold on. I think this is an error. Before I said, having this come out can be really deadly. It looks like black's got a really nice intermediate with knight takes. We'll see what happens. Takes, takes, takes. But now, of course, black can't really get rid of all those pawns. He's got 5 pawns sitting there. So, now I think initially he might have been seeing ghosts and thought that the queen could come out, but now actually black's in trouble. But we'll see how the game continues. So yeah, white's going to get rid of these pawns. They're not quick enough, but all right, this should be a very easy win. So rook. All right, so it's a win next move. The game's over. Oh, whoops. Promote to knight. And that is not the right move. I think just about any other move would have been fine except for that, but Wonder Tom made an error. Now we have knight takes, rook takes. Oh. And that's the end. That's a terrible error. And I guess that's the kind of game that Multani wanted to have in his journal. He just wanted to make a mockery of his opponents. And that's what he's done in this instance. So some of Multani's records, I'm just looking at, if you wondered, so for example, Multani versus Jodl, 73-12, and Multani versus Sibba, number 6 player. Yeah, so you can see against those players who are 6 and 7 on my list, completely dominant, and really good records against most players. A couple of the others in top 5, he did have negative records, but we'll get to that later when we talk about the next player. So that's Multani, bit of a villain, but a very elite player. Now, before I talk about number 3, number 3 player is one that I used to watch when I was on FICS, and I was in awe of how good this guy was at speed suicide. He'd play 1-0, 0-1 against all comers. He'd play it against computers and win. Against difficult computers, fast time controls. He could do this. So before I tell you who our number 3 player is, I want to introduce you to the strongest ever computer ever to grace FICS as ASCP. Nice rating, 3200. 3200. Absolutely smashed other computer players like Nelatek, Super Loser, Self-Killer, etc. Not to mention the poor humans that would play it. So you might think this would deter people from having a go against ASCP. Then I think, what is the point? I'm going to get crushed. So not only did this number 3 player play against ASCP, played against ASCP at 1-0 and won. And that's why I think this player is pretty special. To be able to do that is just absolutely remarkable. So this player, number 3, is Tone. And Tone has played around 60,000 games. You can kind of see it a penchant for quick suicide. That's how he was able to play so many, but just a master of the game. So let's have a look at one of his games. We have 7. All right, this is a nice game against Zibber, number 6 player, 0-1 again. So very high quality. And Zibber likes his knight h3, strange stuff. But anyway, let's see what happens. All right, so it's actually looking all right here. Looks like Black's got a bit of trouble with his knight. Okay. So it's looking a bit dangerous now. And the thing about 0-1, of course, you've got to be really precise. And if we kind of pause and look at it, you can probably find the win for White here. Let's take about, you can see in about 3 or 4 seconds, the right move. Not too difficult, but White actually misplays. Bishop a6 is not the right move. Bishop c4 wins pretty clearly. You can analyze that afterwards, but let's see the game continue. So now bishop takes, and now bishop takes again. So White gets a little bit sticky here. So we've still got this pawns problem here. And bishop takes, rook takes. And still very difficult for Black to win this, even though if we had 2 minutes to think about it, yeah, sure, maybe we could have a good crack. But again, it's about 7 seconds. I'm playing 0-1. It's difficult to win these positions so far behind, even if your evaluation's good. But let's see what he does. So he gets rid of the knight first, simplifies it down to 1 pawn. Gets in there, needs to get the queen out of the way, and promotes the knight. All right, so yeah, bishop promotion was, looks like lost, and the rest were lost probably too. So knight was a pretty good try. And let's see. And yeah, even here, we might be able to win. So again, Black's got 2 seconds. I can probably see a win here for Black a bit quicker, but instead of working it out, Tone just goes on principles. He thinks, I know what to do if I have 0.1 seconds to think. I know what to promote to exactly to win this game against the knight. And this is exactly what he does. So instead of setting up the win, calculating and probably losing on time, he goes against the bishop. And this is the pattern. Push the pawns up, kick the knight out of the way, and promote to bishop. Beautiful. And take. Same again. Why not? The same principle. This way we're nice and safe. Bishop. Just a little waiting move. And there we go. Targeting. Waiting move. Targeting. And now get the knight back there so that it's going to definitely be 1 for king. And that's it. That's Tone winning over Zibber in 0-1. So a real quick master. A couple of his stats. So against Ludicrous, 838 to 545. And against Multani, they had some really good battles, very, very close, actually. So, we're talking about, in the space of 2,300 games, it's about equal. So a really good battle, Tone versus Multani as well. Tone just kind of gets that little edge over being better at quick suicide, a few better records against other players, and being able to beat the best computer, the 3000 computer at 1-0, just gets into that number 3 spot. Okay, now we're getting right up there, the last two. And our number 2 player, well, I've mentioned him in passing before in the first video about the early legends. He wasn't included in the early legends video because he's included here now. He went past the early legends and into this middle era and dominated this era as well. So not only was he at least equal first in the late 90s era, the legends era, but he is also the number 2 player of the 2000s era as well, and that is Nudrum. So Nudrum is one of the really early players and one of those pioneers that played over the board. Only 5,000 games. I think he played a lot of slower suicide, sort of 212 or longer. From what I hear, he was just an absolute endgame master. Probably worked out a lot of the endgame theory, might have actually helped contribute to some of the computer endgames. Such a solid player and so dominant over a long time. So that is Nudrum. Now, he hasn't got a lot of saved games on FICS. So instead of that, we're going to flick over to this game here. And this is one of the games he played live in one of those world championships against our old friend Bill TV, or Mr. Vanderbilt. So this game here, you can actually see this in Elite Chess Study. Here's the URL here. But I like this game a lot. This is one of the good ones. It really shows a beautiful end to a very close game. And at this time, Nudrum wasn't really dominant, even though he was probably one of the best. Someone like Bill TV would be up there with him. So this game, Remmel's, Tim Remmel, of course. Nudrum is black, so C5. And the usual kind of theory. Gets rid of those bishops early, makes it a little bit easier. We're still pretty even here. All right, black's got rid of both his bishops now. Bold move with the knight, but it's safe. Trying to attack at that king, gets it. So that's a nice advantage. Always trying to hunt that king is going to be a good idea. So white's got a bit of a space advantage, but black's still got the king. It's still pretty tricky to play this. All right, so trying to come in there, but now black's going to protect that space. Okay, going to swap off. And I think now this is a really critical position. It's pretty equal here. White has a bit of extra space, one less pawn, black's got the king. But I think white probably plays a bit inaccurate now. I think white is looking and thinking, I've got this knight here, pawn here combo. I might be able to get rid of these pawns. I'm going to push to get rid of the lot. But it might have been a little premature. So with a4, e5 takes. Now white tries to go for getting rid of it all. But black can kind of gauge the situation here and find that it's going to be all right if he gets that pawn over here. So that's a beautiful move. Rook c6 gets that pawn down here. Now there's a much more control. Obviously can't get a king, and he's calculating other things like whether he can get a knight or bishop. But black shuts it down really well. Nice push move first, just to get that advantage to promote. And white resigns here. So white can actually see, no matter what you promote to, it's going to lose. The king's pretty easy to see. His bishop, knight over here. And then you've got takes, promote, and then losing here. Knight's probably the best try, but we have king here, knight here, lose here, and then a beautiful promote to knight because the opposite square. So let's just play through that to show you, because of course they'd have to have seen this. So promote to knight, and we can see this is going to work because of the opposite square it's going to promote to. And now knight. And this is an endgame win. So obviously, whatever white does, black's just going to keep chasing. And you could delay it a couple more moves, but that's it. So nice little endgame lesson. And yeah, another great game from Nudrum, but it's a shame that many of the more modern ones were not recorded. And of course, Built V had a great record against Nudrum. Look at this. So, you know, on FICS, actually, Built V was probably dominating Nudrum in those 90s eras. But Nudrum later, he would go on to show that he could dominate nearly everybody. So another example, let's have a look at him against the J. Okay, he's got about a plus 100 against the J. And against Multani, pretty solidly ahead there to 186 to 126. So Nudrum gets the number 2 spot. All right, now we are really down to the last one. Who could it be? Before I reveal the number 1 player of the FICS era, I'm gonna look at some honorable mentions. And all of these players here in this list were top 20 players. And I used a lot of their statistics to do my analysis. So, you know, we're talking all top 20, around 2,300 plus. All of these guys were nearly deserving of being in the top 10, very close to it, some of them. Couple of comments. So Ludicrous is actually what was the name of Firebat Prime. Played thousands and thousands of games. Okay was number 1 player. Grateful had a positive record against Multani. Molten Thinker, he was a bit more of a later era player. Also played ICC, I believe. Really good. Crosscheck played 120,000 suicide games, probably the most prolific player. And really a lot of these players. Burgle's an interesting one. So Burgle actually has the highest ever rating, but rating doesn't always count for quality. So I want to just quickly look at Burgle. So you can see you've got 26-27, best in 2012. But how did he do it? Well, he's only played 2,000 games, but nearly all of his games are against a computer. And this computer, who's on Chess now, and I play against this computer still sometimes. It's called Cat Nail. So he's crushed this computer Cat Nail, but and he's also played another, I think, 300 games against Crosscheck and had a worse record. So I don't consider Burgle top 10. I would never consider it, despite him having the highest rating. So it's just another point in the analysis that I've had to go through. But all right, enough delaying. Let's find out. Number 1 player. Haven't mentioned him at all, but this is he. And his name is Mr. Pink. Mr. Pink is number 1. Why is he number 1? So he's played 18,000 games, 2450 best. Sure, that's pretty similar to some of the others we saw. You know, another number 1 player. What has made Mr. Pink reach number 1 on my list? Well, let us find out. And we're going to look at his records here. This is Mr. Pink's records against a lot of the players in that honorable mentions list. So even those ones right at the top that nearly made top 10, this is crushing. Crushed OK, Ludicrous, Wonder Tom, you know, even the old masters here who he probably played a little bit against, positive against Bill T, AMN. Amazing. So not only crushing the older players, but doing it really easily. So I'm only here just to sort of prove, hey, I beat the #1 player twice. I don't know how I did it, but I did it. Won 2 games against him. But of course, that's just the honorable mentions. How did Mr. Pink do against the rest of the top 10? Could anyone take him down? This is his record against the other top 10. Crushing. He's got a positive record against every other player pretty clearly. Of course, the only player he didn't play was Jodl, who came a bit later. But these are pretty clear dominations. So even someone like Tone, 200 ahead, Multani, Nudrum, he didn't play Burgle much, and the rest not too much, but no one has gotten the best of Mr. Pink. Mr. Pink, I remember at the time, I think I might have, years ago when I was on there, I used to ask people who's the best. Definitely a couple of people said Mr. Pink was a genius. All right, so he's the #1 player because of those records. Unfortunately, we have hardly any of his games. So I've managed to find one of Mr. Pink's games. We're going to look at it now. And that's 14. All right, so here's one he's playing against the 2600 computer. So without further ado, and I'll try to analyze it a little bit, but obviously I might miss a few things. It's a bit hard to understand the mind of computers and what they're doing. Opening's pretty standard, good positional move, get the open rook file. Doesn't mind the double pawns at the start. So here, look, against computers, the strategy is survive. Don't let get into any real complications. Don't let your bishops out, potentially taking everything, because you're never going to outcalculate the computer. Try to play as positionally as possible. All right, so here looks like he can get rid of the bishop. Avoid some complications this way. C4, nice move, the space. All right, so he actually thought for a while here before Queen A4. And you see he's only got 30 seconds left now. It is plus 5 seconds increment. I think it's a strong move. He really thought for a while, and okay, what can I do to get a positional advantage? Let's either attack at the king or this pawn and try to draw something out. This could give me something good. All right, so best move by the computer. Still takes the pawn. All right, and grabs that back. He's still trying to grab that king. Grabs it. All right, that is a big plus. If you can grab the computer's king, we've got a good shot. All right. And now black's a little bit cramped for space. So we just got to maneuver in the right way. Now black's got the doubled pawn. He got rid of his. Very nice. And trying to grab the rook, but black doesn't give it up just yet. Trying to set up some sort of capture down here, perhaps. This rook's in a bit of trouble now. And you can see this rook can't really hide. Really good move getting the c-pawn up here. Black's going to find it very difficult to get out of this now. So after takes, and that is it. He's able to get here. Still got this pawn. But what can we see here? If we try to look ahead about another 6 moves, black's still got 4 pawns. So it's going to be very tricky. Maybe if we can get a king, it'll be safe enough to get back in time and get in front of at least one of them. That's maybe how I would think. Whereas getting a rook or another piece might be too dangerous, especially against a computer. So let's see. Takes. And the king. Okay, good. So can white get back in time? All of these pawns here. And just gets in front. Looks dicey, but takes. And the last pawn is going to take the king. All right, well done. So nice game from Mr. Pink. And that is our #1 player. All right, so here is a final list again of the top 10 and just their best ratings. So that is it for the FICS era from 2000 to 2009, the top 10 master players. All right. Final thanks to a couple of people. Thanks to Firebet Prime for giving us comments about that early era. And I guess I should thank Mr. Top 10 himself, Pepsi and Gaming, who loves his top 10s and encouraged me to do this list. So hope you've enjoyed, and take care, everybody. See you next time.